Hi, it is week 4 and we're going to talk about what crystals are this week. What are crystals? How do they work? This was my biggest question when I first started working with the crystals, and today I hope to answer all those questions so that you really understand how crystals work. And again, then it's going to be all about you having an experience with your crystals. So crystals work, basically, I came up with a little saying to help you remember how crystals work. EMC, M3 squared, you can even think of how crystals work. E stands for energy, M stands for the minerals, and C stands for the color. So crystals work by emitting an energy, by us working with the healing properties of the minerals, and about the color, about the rays of light that are reflected through the crystals. So they really are hitting us in 3 different ways, and I love that number 3. I always think of the Holy Trinity or the power of 3, or when 2 or more come together, it's just so much more powerful. So I'm going to give you a book recommendation that I gave you the other day that's going to also explain this even more. And I recommended this on our week 1 video, but he really dives into the science part of it a little bit more. So I'm going to just kind of read through some of the definitions right now of how crystals work and what they are. A crystal is a solid body with a geometrically regular shape that's made of atoms, ions, and molecules emitting a very specific light frequency. So that is my favorite definition that I encourage you to write down so that you can have that on what crystals really are. A crystal is a solid body with a geometrically regular shape. They are made of atoms, ions, and molecules, and they're emitting a specific light frequency energy. Now, what's very interesting is that crystals are only made up of 7 geometric shapes. And I don't know that that's a coincidence with our 7 major chakra energy centers on our body. Those 7 shapes that crystals are mainly made up of are a square, a hexagon, a triangle, rectangle, rhombus, parallelogram, and trapezium. So there are 7 shapes basically, and the crystals are made up in these shapes to where there's no space in between them. They're just these beautiful repeating patterns of these 7 shapes. And I'm going to show you a picture of these 7 shapes that the crystals are made up of. That is how they reflect the light so beautifully. Now, the crystals, when they were first discovered by the ancient Greeks, which we'll get into in another video when I talk a little bit more in depth about the history of crystals. But the Greeks, that's where the name actually came from, because crystal means ice. And the Greeks actually believed that the crystal was such a deeply frozen piece of ice that it could never melt again. So the crystal actually comes from the Greek word kristallos, meaning the Greeks believed a rock crystal was so deeply frozen that the water could never melt again. Now, this myth, of course, has been debunked, but we have found out that ice is actually a crystal formation, and so is sugar, and so is salt. So we're actually using crystals every day in our life. A couple other meanings of crystals that I wanted to give you is a material in which atoms, molecules, and ions are arranged in a very rigid geometric structure marked by symmetry. Crystals often have clearly visible geometric shapes. Most minerals are crystal, and crystals grow in a geometric pattern with no gaps. So in thinking about how crystals work, it really helps to understand how we pick our crystals and how we use our crystals. If our crystals are working from energy, then just by being around a crystal, then we're in its energy space. And since we've learned how to cleanse our crystals and charge our crystals and program our crystals, it helps them to just be that more powerful and to emit that much more like specific energy for our specific needs. And the piece about the minerals is why I specifically like to use crystals in jewelry, and why I started making the jewelry to begin with was then you have the crystals on your skin. Your crystal or your skin, excuse me, is the largest organ on your body, and your skin will absorb some of the minerals from the crystals. So it's in its energy space, we're getting the energy and we're absorbing the minerals from the crystal. And then from the light therapy, the colors that the crystals are reflecting and transmitting work with our different energy centers in our body and our 7 major chakra centers. So that's the way you'll want to start working with your crystals, is once you know those energy centers, then it makes it so much easier to pick and choose your crystals, because that's how they're going to work with your body. And that's how crystal healing works. In the simplest form, crystal healing is laying on of crystals. You can also do grids with intention. You can do some distant healing with your crystals, and you can make some elixirs with your crystals as well to take the energy internally of those crystals. But in general, it's just the laying on of the crystals. So you would want to take maybe a clear quartz for your crown chakra. We could take a lapis for our 3rd eye chakra. And we could do a labradorite, or my favorite actually, an aquamarine right here for our throat center. We could do a rose quartz. Here's a big one so that you can see, but a smaller one. And we can lay that right here in our heart center. Moving down to right above our navel would be citrine. And you can just lay this, and directly on the skin would be better, 2 fingers above your belly button. And then our sacral chakra, 2 fingers below our belly button is where we want to lay, I would pick a carnelian. And then for our root chakra, that is at the base of our spine. Normally when I'm working with clients and they're laying down, I just drop it between their legs so it's very close to that base of their spine. And here would be a smoky quartz. So to review, the easiest way for you to remember how crystals work is to remember M3 squared. They work by the energy they emit, the specific minerals that they're made up of, and the color that they are reflecting. That is how the crystals work. And again, here's the book that I recommend if you want to dive deeper into this, because they have all the geometric shapes, the 7 that the crystals are made up of. This author specifically believes that people that consistently pick crystals that are made up of a specific geometric pattern have something in common. And he talks about that in the book. And then the other part that I love is when he gets into all of the minerals and how they affect our body. Here's aluminum. I just kind of flip through to show you, because the crystals, like I said, most crystals are made up of minerals, or most minerals are crystals. All crystals are made up of minerals. So it talks about all of that to expand your awareness. And I truly believe that the more knowledge we have about something that works, especially something that can feel different at first when we're stepping outside of traditional medicine, some people may call it a little woo-woo. So I figured to put this video kind of in the beginning of the series so that you can have a little science understanding to how they work, and be prepared then to go in with an open mind to just experience your crystals. Namaste.